Hey guys and girls, welcome to Forgetting Walls, the podcast, episode 26. Jack is back. He's with me, Keith, and Justin, talking science. Talk about genetic modifications, this thing called a CRISPR, cutting DNA, maybe making superhuman communist babies, and no, that is not a band. Even though we dig into that idea for a little bit. Also, we talk about the Charleston shooting. We have some pretty good juicy bits at the end. I guess for us, they're funny. Maybe not for you. Hope you have a laugh. I want you to check out the GoFundMe page. That's GoFundMe.com/ForgettingWalls. No, just got to keep promoting that. We need all the help we can get. Also, like I said, stay through to the entire show and check out the deleted clip we have at the end. Also, want to give another shout out to our man Darcy over at Johnson the Sound. We want you to check him out over at johnsonthesound.com or on Facebook and on Twitter. It's Johnson the Sound. It's pretty simple. Also, we just want to thank you for all your support and your listening and your viewing. Whatever it is you're doing, we thank you. Again, forgettingwalls.com, as simple as that. Now it's time for that dubstep.
Hey!
Hey everybody, welcome to Forgetting Walls, the podcast.
Yeah.
Episode number 26. Special episode. I think all the episodes to me are special just because we get to put a new episode out. But
They all hold a special place in your heart.
they do, because I put so much work into them. And I'll tell you a quick story after we introduce everybody. Just
All right.
don't let me forget. But anyways, hey everybody, I'm Keith, as usual. And on the other end, say hello, Justin. Hey,
Yep.
Justin.
So, hey everyone.
With me, as usual, is the sequel.
Hey guys, how you doing?
Other Keith.
And
The other Keith.
for those who are confused,
Yes. And back with us again after a long absence.
It's been way too long.
You know, and I'm just going to say this. We always call Skylar the resident Buddhist.
oh god,
Here is our
man.
resident atheist agnostic. Jack, say hello,
I'm
Jack.
pretty much just here so they can say it's not a Christian podcast. Have you guys given up on saying it's not a Christian podcast yet?
Well, it's technically just Christians on a podcast.
Yeah. He has the point there.
It's just Christians on a because believe me, last week we probably put a bigger crimp into the Christian side of things.
I would not know because I'm not caught up because I'm never caught up.
It's
on anything
okay.
in life.
I'm not caught up either. But then again, since I edit the podcast and speak on it, I think I know what's going on. Speaking of editing, so I go into Sunday night. Well, you remember I called you or I texted you and it's like, dude, podcast is going to be running late. I thought I was going to run late with it because our power was out for like 5 hours on Sunday.
Wow.
Our transformers kept blowing out here. So I was like, okay. So I sit down. It's about, 7:30, 8 o'clock. It was late to start editing the podcast. And I go to look for the file.
Oh no.
And I couldn't find it.
No.
Obviously, if people listen to the podcast, they know that I did find it. But
Right, eventually you found it.
But for 15 to 20 minutes,
That had to be so terrifying, dude.
I was just about to text you and go, we have to do something right now for the podcast, and we can't edit it.
Oh, jeez.
That's how bad I was.
That was a good podcast too. Like,
Yeah,
that was,
I think it's one of our better podcasts.
yeah, I know that one's really sucked.
It would have. I'm like, man, we're going to lose the best one we probably put out in a while. But
Yeah.
let me just say, thanks be to God that we found this podcast and we were able to put it out to the public.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Anyways,
So if you haven't listened to it yet, listen to it because that thing was almost lost. So.
oh my gosh, right?
What you should have done is not released it until like you found it like 3 or 4 weeks later, and then it's the lost podcast, and everyone wants to listen to it so badly.
The whole 30 people.
It's like that one episode of South Park where Cartman buys an amusement park.
There it is.
Yep, there you go.
Also,
Hey, Gath, what's going on?
all right. Respect
Please do
my
the
authority.
Please, sequel Keith. Please do the entire podcast with Cartman.
Oh, that would be excellent.
I'd be super thrilled, and then I wouldn't be the only atheist anymore, so that'd be kind of interesting.
Also, in late breaking news, it's not really late breaking since it happened a couple of days ago, but I am ecstatic at the NBA Finals. I am so happy.
Was
that not just like, I'm the best player in the world. And I'm not doubting that he's probably right now the best player in the world. But you still lost.
Yeah. I'm sorry, you don't get a ring this year.
No ring this year. And you're 2-4. And I'm thinking, man, did you see the meme that had like Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, and Dwayne Wade in it? And LeBron was up front, and they all had like their finals numbers, like Jordan 6-0, and Kobe was 5-2, and Dwayne Wade was 3-2, and they were all like pointing and laughing at LeBron, and he had 2-4 on his chest. That was the greatest meme of the week. Anyways, what we're talking about, Justin, is that Golden State Warriors beat the Cleveland Cavaliers for the NBA championship. Just so you know.
It was okay. It was a great
Sounds
series.
Good.
I have to admit, it's probably one of the better series I've seen in a long time. It was very contested, and I would have loved to seen if Kevin Love and Kyrie Irving, if they were in, what that would have looked like.
See, I'm of the opinion Kyrie would have added. I think he would have definitely added. It would have been a closer series, but having both him and Kevin Love at that point, LeBron's taking so many less shots.
Yeah.
I think it kind of washes out.
Yeah, I agree.
I think having Kyrie to kind of add depth and a little bit more defense would have helped.
Yeah.
Putting him on Curry would have helped a little bit, but.
Well, and that's what I was going to say. The defense of Golden State would have had to pay more attention to Kevin Love and to Kyrie instead of focusing. Because, nobody else was doing anything.
No.
Mozgov, but, he's like 7 foot something.
Yeah, he barely played in Game 5.
Yeah,
so.
and he's just got to blow the basketball into the goal. But anyways, sorry for boring our other end here. Look, if I don't get a little sports talk in, I feel this podcast goes downhill as the manly stuff.
That's okay. I think Zach and I silently made a drinking game out of you guys talking about sports.
Hey, but about the finals, what did you think about Iggy getting MVP?
You know what? I didn't like it.
You didn't?
No, and it's not
Azalea? What?
Oh my gosh,
Andre Iguodala.
I think I'm glad that they voted for him to get it, but I felt like because he wasn't a starter, that his value was there, but it wasn't. I still think. I wouldn't have been mad if LeBron got it because I think he was the most valuable player on the floor. Of course, if he wasn't there, Cleveland wouldn't be there.
Yeah.
But if you have to give it to a winning team, I still think
Steph Curry.
He was.
Especially those last 2 games, he was incredible. He was lights out. He was every bit as good as LeBron.
And if the other guys could hit their shots, he would have had like 35 assists in that last game.
Yep.
It was crazy. Anyways.
Anyhow,
Justin and I's drinking game was drink when they mention sports and don't stop drinking until they're done.
Well,
and now we're both hammered.
Okay, y'all got to stop doing that. We got a podcast to record.
No, it'll be more fun this way because this way I won't censor myself. There'll be a lot of swearing. It'll be great. That's exactly what you need.
For you.
Yeah.
More editing on Keith. Bring it on.
Yeah, bring it on. But
please, every time I swear, replace it with praise Jesus. This is me giving you permission to do that.
Oh my gosh. And I want to find the most Pentecostal version of
I praise God.
Every time I swear.
That's the clip I'm using right there. I'm cutting that one out.
So hold on. If I swore now, would you then go back so I can swear now?
Oh yeah, I'll just have to do that. That's going to be fun. Please be easy on me though.
Can I just do one right now?
Go ahead. Go.
Make sure you actually are good on your word here.
Yeah, go ahead.
I praise God.
That's gonna be great. I can't wait to hear how that sounds.
I cannot wait to try to edit that. Okay, let's move forward.
Anywho,
Well, I do want to go a little bit more serious now. Since today is Thursday, last night there was a man. It's one way just to go from like, you know, hey, we're super cool and light into the podcast, and now we're going to get like really serious. But last night in Charleston, there was a shooting at the Emmanuel AME Church. Guy walked in, and this is what gets me. He just didn't walk in and do this. Yeah. He walked in, and he was there for about an hour with them, and then got up and he killed 9 people. Roof, I can't remember what his first name was.
Dylan Roof, something like that.
Yeah, we'll speak his name because it needs to be heard by everybody what happened. And I don't care what media's publishing. I don't care what anybody else is saying. This was totally vetted out of hate for a race, period. He even said it. He said it to them in there. That's what the eyewitnesses said. Obviously, with the jacket he was wearing, if you've read any of articles, if you're in the news anywhere today,
the South African flag during the apartheid era.
Yeah, he had apartheid flags, not just South Africa, but he had another one. I can't remember where that one was from, and Confederate flag and all that stuff. It's you know how I feel about the race issue. We've spoken about it a little bit here and there. We really haven't gotten into it, and we're going to talk about it tonight a little bit. Mm-hmm. It's not the meat and potatoes, but I mean, listen, we're 4 white guys right now on the show. I mean, that's very apparent. I've lived most of my life in culturally mixed situations, racially mixed situations. Most of my friends, you know, are of different races, but it still doesn't qualify me to speak on anybody else's culture and race outside of what I know. So, our opinions will be based on, you know, no matter what anybody says, opinions from white guys who have a certain amount of white privilege in the United States. So what we say tonight, you can hold it with a grain of salt if you want, or you can take it serious. But I hope you take what we say seriously, because I don't think any of us sitting here tonight approves at all of what happens, or I mean, what happened last night. If you don't know, if you're like listening to this podcast and you have no availability to any media outlet, 9 people were shot last night and killed. I think 3 more were injured, if I'm not mistaken.
I don't know how many it was, but a few did survive. Yeah.
And it was done at the hands of a 21-year-old. Well, we can call him white supremacist, white person who hated black people. I mean, that's exactly what it boils down to. And I can't say that I'm not just sickened by it, but it just blows my mind. You know, some days I think, man, we can't be going, people can't be in that mindset still in America, but they are.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think this situation too, the kid was obviously a racist.
Oh yeah.
Obviously, I mean, I don't think there's any argument in this situation. This kid was a racist. He hated black people. Mm-hmm. Yes. But I disagree with the people that say that he wasn't disturbed. Because there are people trying to say that don't call him disturbed, don't call him mentally unstable. This is what happens when you mix a racist, big-time racist, with someone who's mentally disturbed. And
absolutely.
Probably some level of a sociopath.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's horrific.
Yeah, I mean, I know plenty of people who are racist. I mean, we live in the South. I mean, it's
right.
When we know plenty of people are racist. But I don't know of any of those racists who will walk into a church and shoot people in cold blood. So don't get me wrong. This is a race issue, but there was something definitely, I believe there is definitely something wrong with that child.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
But the thing that gets me is y'all have to forgive me where I'm going with this, but because, I was saying, it just strikes me weird that in this country that would happen today, even though it did, and it still will. And I was sitting there thinking today, like, how many people were shocked and just appalled at what happened, right? But I was sitting there driving today, and I was thinking, I bet you there are people who are watching the news right now going, that's a great thing. They got what they deserved. I mean, there's people out there right now thinking that. And I don't know why in today's world that people can have that kind of hate because you are not the same color. It still blows my mind. And I came up with a few, I guess, theories of why that happened. And I think look, there's racism amongst all people, or prejudice amongst all people. We all have we carry some type of prejudice for all people somewhere, somehow. Even though we don't like to admit it sometimes, I think everybody does. There's people who go against, black people. There's black people who hate white people. There's white people who hate black people. There's all different forms of racism. But when I think about the racism that white people, and because I'm white, I can speak to this. I think the racism or prejudice that comes from a white person to other races is solely set upon this superiority complex. This complex of pride and arrogance, like we're better than everybody else, like we started the world or something. And that's what I see, because there's absolutely no reason, I mean, honestly, that you should be killing or hating people based on the color of their skin, especially in today's world. But yet it still happens.
Right.
So that's a really interesting point. And so I think it kind of predicates itself on like what most people believe racism is.
Yeah.
And so, from my understanding, and again, as you mentioned really well, it's, four white guys talking about racism is kind of a cliche at this point.
Right.
Fox News does it all the time. And we're probably better than they are. I'm just going to throw that out there, but...
Hey, now they actually, a lot of times they'll actually get a black person on too, though. We should probably do it.
Yeah, but they pay them a lot of money so that they
true.
Lie. It's really terrible. So the thing about racism that I find really interesting is that it's not like something that comes from people. Racism isn't something that I'm kind of uncomfortable calling people racist just because I don't think it's something that comes from people. I think it's an institutional problem. I think it's an overarching issue of oppression. And I think where a lot of that racism comes from is it has to be economically driven. I mean, it has to be. I don't know. It just seems like throughout history and nowadays, it's just white people trying to justify the mistreatment of black individuals for their own benefit. It just seems to be the case every time you look at it. And that's really problematic to me.
I don't know. I guess for seeing racism at its core here where I live at, and being, a part of a family who I've seen, racist things happen. It's some of it's just pure hate. It's not something that benefits them. It's just hateful.
Oh, and I think I might have I think I probably misspoke in the sense that you're right. It absolutely is driven by hate in many, many cases.
Yeah.
But I'm talking about kind of like the overarching reason why it's encouraged, because since it's a systemic problem, a lot of people who are just kind of like the people who hate, the people who are just purely motivated or hate, it's because they've been fed a lot of lies to justify their hate. And the people who fed them those lies, I believe were doing it for economic reasons.
Oh, and
you're absolutely right.
Yeah, and I think the other side of it too is that I don't think a person is born. I mean, even though as a Christian we say, okay, we're born into sin as Christians, but I don't think racism is something that is born into a person's.
Absolutely not.
Right, and that's something I was gonna pick up, because I was wondering where you guys fit on that track, and I definitely think that racism is something that is taught, is something that is passed down by an overarching institution that we live in.
See, I gotta disagree to a certain extent. I do agree that racism is, and has been, especially over the past few centuries, somewhat of an institutional problem, but people in general tend to be scared of what's different, and people who look differently than them are part of that. I mean, racism started for a reason, not because an institution wanted to pass it on.
It's because it's this inherent fear of the other, the person who is different than you.
Okay.
Well, see, that's why I think that there's always going to be racism. I mean, I agree that we can combat racism. I think there's always
going to be oppression in some form or another, but I don't know if it's going to be racism.
Well,
because,
Go ahead.
I was going to say, the reason racism, throughout history is a recurring theme is because it's tended to be easier than other traits to, separate groups of people based on the color of their skin.
Yeah.
Theoretically, you could have a system of racism that oppresses people based on their pancreas size, but like it's really hard to actually determine that. Whereas opposed to actually having a visual indicator that somebody can't really escape from is a really useful tool for those who want to oppress. And it's also been happening to women. It happens to women too, because same sort of thing. And it happens to pretty much any group of people that has any sort of distinguishing characteristics, which is really depressing.
Well, yeah, and I mean, we were talking a few weeks ago. We were speaking towards racism a little bit, and I said, you know, I think we've always seen. I mean, around the world, you see racism, but a lot of times it's I feel like it's more dealt around the religious systems that oppress each other. But why in America? You know, you're just talking about things that are different. But in today's world in America, there's no shock and surprise of what's different. Everything is different between people's colors, everything in America today. I mean, if any culture should be overcoming racism, it should be our culture. I mean, honestly.
You're right. I think you would think that.
Yeah.
But
that's where traditions are held. That's why I'm saying, like, since racism is not something that's born into a person, it's something that is generational. You were raised a certain way. Some people break from it. Some people don't. And I think a lot of people, you can't. I agree that you have to learn to love. You have to learn to live with other people. But I was raised in a household that was not taught to, you know, be not racist. I mean, because you hear it all the time. You hear the slurs, you hear this, you hear how they talk, you hear see the separation.
Right.
But how did I had to, immerse myself in these cultures and get away from my culture to understand not only the struggles that they go through, but see what they go through, live in that culture with them and break that. But we are starting to live in a culture today. I understand in the South, you know, especially North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Mississippi, and Alabama, there is still a great populace of segregated people. So that still is a lot of the reason. So people are being raised in that segregated system. And I think that's why racism is so much stronger in these areas than it is in, you know, Seattle and New York and places like that, where there's still racism, but it's not as, I don't know, as neat as it is in the South, you know.
And I think that's an interesting point, because one of the important things people need to realize about racism is that everybody is kind of inherently racist and sexist, because we all participate.
Racist sometimes.
Because thank you, Jess. Thank you for that Avenue Q truth.
No.
Truth bomb of Avenue Q.
That's what I'm for.
And like, I feel like most people don't want to accept that, and if you don't accept it, then you can't change it, which I think is silly. Like so many people are afraid to say that, you know, I probably contribute to these institutional racisms and sexisms without even in ways I don't even realize.
Oh yeah.
And I'm just waiting for somebody like telling me so I can change. And I feel like that's kind of.
I agree with that to a good bit, because I feel that I'm a bit sexist at times. I mean, let's be real. I was raised a man's dude, man. I mean, come on.
We all are, Keith. It's fine.
But you know, for me, it's the part where you're prejudiced, and I like that. I like using that word better, because prejudice just kind of covers the whole gambit of things.
Right.
When your prejudice takes over your faculty to think and to reason, and it becomes the hate that drives you, then there's a little bit more to do with it than just basic racism. You know, like this kid.
Right, yeah.
And that's what I'm saying. This kid is, look, not overlooking the fact. There were 9 people who were probably, loved Jesus, was sitting in that church praying, didn't have a thought in the world that anything was going to happen, and this happened. And it was boiled out of racism. It was boiled out of hatred. It is a hate crime. That's what it has to be. He did it out of that reason. But I think for us is how do we speak to this? How do we raise awareness to say, okay, like you said, Jack, we have this propensity to have either we all have this propensity to have inherent racism at some point, or sexism or prejudice, you know, which I feel like racism in itself is taught. Even though we have we have this ability to have this prejudice or some type of prejudice as we, I guess, are born in and we grow into it.
It's really interesting to me, because I don't think what this guy who shot 9 people in a church, I don't think what he thought he was doing anything wrong.
No, I agree.
And I don't think he thought he was racist. And I think that's interesting because you make a point that there's some sort of distinction between kind of like our inherent racism that we're taught because we participate in a racist society, which is kind of unavoidable.
Yeah.
And his, but it's and certainly there is certainly a scale difference in the sense, he committed acts of violence, which is significantly worse than a lot of other things.
Right.
But it's tough for me to buy any sort of thing where people say, well, we might be a little bit racist, or we might be, we might just accidentally be racist, because it seems to me that it's tough to judge the scale by which you act, and it's tough to judge your own actions. I mean, he thought he was doing something right. We think we're doing something right. And it's really important to have the understanding that we might be wrong, and that that could lead to some very bad things.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's just, I guess what my closing message on this would be just to realize you might be wrong in thinking about how racist or how sexist you are, and you might be far worse than you think, which in case you can deal with it, you can change.
Yeah.
It's just important to recognize that. So that's my closing on that.
Right. And I think for me, my biggest thing on this whole subject is that despite all that we talked about and everything we talked about tonight, which is very important, it was like we talked about earlier, this was an event that happened, 9 people were killed.
Yeah.
And that's a tragedy. And I think a lot of people turn it into I guess fodder for some sort of agenda or whatever, whether or not that's legitimate or not.
Yeah.
But this thing, what happened is not merely a way to propagate your own ideas or your own
absolutely
or prejudices. This was a tragedy, and a senseless tragedy. And so, from my final point is, if you pray, if you do pray, give prayers to the families and to the people in Charleston. And I mean, if you don't pray, I don't know what you do, Jack, but send good vibes.
I'm okay with that.
No, but in all seriousness, mourn with those who mourn, and that's be there.
I agree.
Help in some way.
I agree.
I'll just kind of reiterate what Justin was saying. I'm very glad that you said that, because I was on Twitter today, and it was just super disappointing, because all I was seeing would be these major figures arguing about whether it was about the level of racism, or arguing about if it was a gun control issue and all of this. Yeah. And don't get me wrong, those things are important to discuss and to be able to do, but in this time, that's not so appropriate. I mean, that's not appropriate. Yeah, that's not appropriate, and it's irreverent and irrelevant for what the situation calls for. Right the
now.
Only thing I could think of when I would see those things was just, it's not about you.
Yes,
it is not about you. Why do you feel the need to comment in this way?
Right, exactly.
It's about these 9 human beings who lost their lives because someone committed an atrocity against them.
Absolutely.
And now their family and their friends have to deal with it.
But officially, Forgetting Walls, we want to tell whoever's listening, thoughts and prayers go out to those in Charleston. We know probably nobody from Charleston who was affected by this is listening to us, but if it does happen to make it in somebody's hands, we are sorry and for what has happened, and there is no words that can make up for this tragedy. Man, we went a little bit long to this, but I think it was well worth it. So we're going to take a little break, and we're going to come back with some maybe really fun stuff for the meat and potatoes today. So stick around with us, and man,
we'll see you then.
Yeah, absolutely.
Break this heart and its affections, for vanity and vain desires, and break my will if it's reflection. Mirror only flesh and bone and wood and wire. but you give the only thing that covers me. So take this cursing tongue and make it sing.
And we're back. Thanks for staying around with us. That was a new favorite for me is Thieves and Kings, Cursing Tongue. Yeah. Why not? We're going to give a big shout out to our man Darcy Rumble over at Johnson the Sound, who recommended this on his site. Dude, awesome reco, man. Awesome reco. Looking forward to doing some stuff with Johnson the Sound, hopefully here soon.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, we're
getting things in the works.
Yes. Got a few things up our sleeves. But yeah, definitely if you're into music that has a God-related theme to it, and you just want good music, which is good music, so and go check them out, Thieves and Kings, good stuff. Moving forward,
yeah.
What, I don't get a music recommendation?
Oh yeah, anything you want.
I mean, Nate Russ just released a new album, which I'm really excited about.
Yeah,
I love Nate Russ.
Cool.
He was the lead singer of the Format and is the lead singer of Fun, and he's really, really good.
Yeah,
and his music is secular, which is interesting.
Well, we do secular music too. Don't worry.
That's good.
We do.
No, I mean his music is also he has a lot of lines about against religion, which is kind of he has some interesting ones.
Oh yeah, well I like music. So when I find something good, I like something that's a little obscure, I throw it on here.
Yep.
Yeah, you should check out Fun's first album, The Gambler, before they got big. It was really, really good.
I'll have to check that out. So tonight's topic, everybody, that you probably heard me speak about in the intro that I have yet not recorded yet.
Don't reveal the magic.
But yeah, tonight we're going to speak on some science topics tonight, and it's going to integrate. Oh yes,
I'm excited.
We're going to debunk religion. No,
it's already did it. You guys are fine. Don't worry about it.
But we're going to speak about some stuff tonight, and the reason we're going to talk about this is because we had a friend mention it to us, and we're going to try to look at this from different views. Of course, a Christian worldview and not Christian worldviews, and because there's some questions I think that come up that are interesting that we want to discuss tonight. So we came across this topic that was the reason we came across it because I think Radiolab's podcast over at NPR did it, and they talked about this thing called a CRISPR, and we got it, and I'm like, I don't know what this is. So I sent it over to Justin, and I was like, man, wouldn't it be great to have Jack on the show? Because, since he's trying to be a scientist at some point.
I actually got out of the lab like an hour ago, so I guess.
Yeah, there it is. And it's his field. It's biology. It's a field of biology. So it's something that he would know about. And I believe you said molecular biology. Hello, folks. I am Porky Pig.
It is molecular biology.
Thank you. So what better person to have on the show than when we're talking about biology and stuff at the molecular level? So
maybe a PhD or somebody who actually does CRISPR. I don't know.
Well, we
try my best.
We can't afford those people.
All you got to say is, could you please explain your research on this podcast? And they'd be like, on a podcast? Explain my research? I would love to do that for 9 hours.
And again, we can't afford those type of people.
No, they'll do it for free. They just love gushing about whatever they're doing.
That is true.
Yeah, you're right. But there's this concept called a CRISPR. It's not a concept; it's a thing in DNA, and we're going to have Jack describe it a little bit more. But
so basically, do you want me to go ahead and try to describe it from me and Keith's lay level knowledge of it?
It's fine with me.
Okay. So we went to the most credible source we could find, the Wikipedia page.
Woohoo!
And so we were trying to decipher what this thing was. And so basically what I got out of it is okay, this is going to be terrible. Okay. So
I'm really excited.
It kind of cuts is it the DNA and takes out specific or the genome or part of the gene and takes certain information out and inserts via a virus or via some sort of conduit new genetic information in its place.
Okay. It sounds close, but what I've got from what I've looked at was that when I think when they initially discovered this, I'm just going to call it phenomenon.
Yeah.
It was in the bacteria. I think the E. coli bacteria is where I think they initially discovered it or something, and they noticed this this set of repeating things in the DNA, which I don't know the scientific term, so we're going to use thingies and whatchamabobs.
Actually, CRISPR stands for what that thing is.
Yeah.
It's clustered regularly interspaced short palindromic repeats.
Exactly.
That.
And I knew that. I just didn't remember how to say it. But what was funny to me is when I was listening to the description of this thing, it was what had happened is that these CRISPRs or whatever it is, they take what they was finding is that they was finding these virus coding inside a bacteria, which is weird because they are against each other. But it was this image that was in these things, these molecules that was sent out, and they would thank you. But they would hunt down these viruses or they would look for these same images in the virus, and when they found the exact match, they would kill it. It was like they would cut the head off this virus or whatever. And that's kind of how they were picking up these images that were not supposed to be there, and they was putting it into their DNA as like some type of defense. And then I think what came to light of everything, they were saying, well, what if we can take a different image, put it into the DNA strand, and say we're going to send it out to cut those bad things out of the DNA, like a gene that caused, I don't know, Down syndrome. I don't know if that's real or not, but they could find that gene and cut it out because that's the image they were looking for. So that's what I know of it.
Yes. And Keith, you're actually really, really close. You're not wrong at all. So basically, brief history that I totally didn't just look up now is the science. So in bacteria and bacterial studies, there's a really useful technique which uses things called spliceosomes, which are enzymes that cut DNA at very specific points. Usually these enzymes recognize like 8 to 12 base pairs, which if you actually take a look at the statistics, don't really occur randomly. So you can they occur randomly at a certain rate. And so you can cut those pieces and it creates pieces called sticky ends, which you can then rejoin with your desired DNA. And it's really cool. It's how you insert plasmids to produce things like insulin, to genetically modify bacteria, to do other really cool things. And it's a really commonly used one. So when experimenting with this, what they did was they decided to introduce a virus to see if they could potentially have some viral interaction with the bacteria that might be interesting, because viruses are used in all sorts of ways. There's actually, in the lab I work in, they'd use viruses and other supplemental products to try to encourage viruses to kill cancer cells. So that's an entire field of research that I'm actually probably going to end up going into called oncolytic viruses, which are just viruses that are used to kill cancer cells.
So
yes.
let me just interject.
I went off topic.
No, it's fine. But let me interject. So
yes.
Your goal, so everybody can understand, your goal as what you're going for college, your scientific field is to do what?
So basically, I want to be able to use viruses and modify viruses in order to kill cancer cells.
So you're out there trying to hunt a cure for cancer, to get rid of cancer.
Well, specific cancers, because each cell type is different and it gets really complicated, but it's fun.
I'm down with that. I'm supporting you. I'm down with that. I'm supporting you on that.
That's just a brief kind of overview of like viruses being used. And in this specific example, what they found is that whenever virus would infect a bacteria, what would happen was, because of this interaction and the way viruses work and all that jazz, through replicating DNA and all that, it would create this RNA strand that would bind to this protein called Cas9, which is a defensive mechanism of the bacteria. And when this protein bound to Cas9, it would essentially rip out a specific section of the virus. And virus genomes are really small. They're like very, very small. So when you rip out a specific section, it can be very crippling to the virus. So in this case, it inactivated it and killed the virus. And so the researchers were like, this Cas9 protein isn't really virus specific. It just takes a look at this matching sequence and just kills it. So what we could do is we could introduce DNA that matches a gene that we want to knock out and introduce Cas9 with it, and then just knock out that gene.
Okay.
And also, it also says it could activate, which I'm assuming, I guess you could use it to insert genes as well.
Yeah.
But I think that's just kind of more recent thing that they're testing. I think one of the major things that they do is knock out a repressor.
Yeah.
So in gene regulation, there are these things called repressors, and what they are essentially proteins or coding for stuff that prevents DNA from being read. So when you knock out the repressor, that lets the DNA just be read. And so I'm guessing you can activate genes by knocking out repressors, or at least the DNA that codes for the repressors. But yeah, I'm not really sure how they use it for inserting new genes, but I know that they can, because both MIT and Duke are doing it. So that's generally a good sign that something's possible.
There it is.
Yeah.
Did everybody get that?
I actually did.
Nobody's at home going...
You had that one queued up for me. That hurts. That hurts.
Actually, I didn't have it queued up for you because I knew at some point I would have to use it. But all that science talk, we're going to get to a more, I guess, relevant point for everybody who may be listening to us.
That's right.
But
science not relevant, right?
No, and I'm going to say
it's
this.
all fake anyway.
Yeah, science is fake. Yeah. You know, it's just hocus pocus. It's nothing that we can observably do.
That's what the man likes to tell you.
Oh my gosh.
Did you like that, Justin?
No, I hated it.
You understand the concept of sarcasm, right, Justin?
I know. I just want everyone else to understand that was sarcasm.
Well, I hope they could understand that sarcasm. I meant,
If they're 26 episodes in and don't realize that Keith is almost always sarcastic, I feel like... Because I've talked to you like 5 or 6 times, but like hearing you talk for like 26 hours, at a certain point, you must think like, all right, this guy is jokey. He's not all serious all the time.
I think more to the relevant point.
Yes.
Maybe. But no, yeah. So the reason this came up is because from what we've seen that this could possibly do is that I guess the big controversial point of it is that they it started when I think the Chinese did some of this. They used this CRISPR to modify some embryos. And I think they were successful to a point in 28 of them out of, like, I don't know how many they did. It was a ridiculous number, close to 100 of them. So I mean, the success-failure rate was pretty low.
These were human embryos?
Yeah, human embryos.
Just to clarify.
Yeah, they were human embryos. And so everybody started flipping out, and they started making this big deal, which I don't know if it's really a big deal because they realized this wasn't a great success, and we need to go back to the drawing board.
That so often happens in science.
Yeah, and hey, that's fine. That's great. You know, I won't get into other things, but there's so many other things I can talk about. So what the point came up is what if you can basically design your baby? You know, you can use these things to cut and splice and put DNA together the way you want it in the embryo so that when this baby's born, it can be exact. Because at first they were talking about, like, you know, to try to alleviate, kids coming out with birth defects or like stuff like Down syndrome and those types of things. And then it kind of went into like, can your baby have red hair or blue eyes, or could they be taller? Can you get rid of the repressive genes that are bad, you know, and create your Arnold Schwarzenegger instead of Danny DeVito, if you have watched the movie Twins.
Very good reference.
There you go. So
I was not expecting a Twins reference on this genetic engineering podcast.
And then the question starts coming. So, you know, there's a lot of things that start playing into this, you know, because, you know, you've heard stuff about stem cell research and you've heard stuff about cloning and all these things. Now you're getting into actually, modifying the living thing that's there. And the first question that came up when we were discussing this is, and we'll start here, I think this is a good place to start, is could you be playing God as a Christian? This is coming from a Christian perspective. So, you know, Jack's going to have his thoughts, but, you know.
Let's bring Jack on talking about a science topic and then immediately not talk about the science topic.
Well, but the science of it is that, you know, the different ways that, you know, how creation works or how things were created or the origins of them, however you want to look at it.
Sure.
You know, from a perspective of a intelligent designer or a creator that started all this and put things in motion, whether you believe in a theistic evolution or you believe in a literal creationist theory, whatever it is, when you go there, you have to kind of you start looking at these things that science is proving and pointing out that these things are actually happening and working, and now we can use these things to do certain things. I think it starts affecting with people's worldviews and perspectives on their faith and where they come from. So, right. And I think one of the questions that I think people, and I'm not just going to say Christians, I mean, there's going to be other people in other religions who have a deity that they look to, thinking that, okay, this deity created us or organized us to put this all together. Could we be taking their place by engineering something that they have supposedly put in place? Can we now take control of that? Could we be playing God?
All right. And I think this is going to be a long response, but there's one argument which would say that, well, if you are manipulating any part of nature, isn't that also playing God? Because and really to have that stance would be to go way back to like ancient Greek philosophy, like say Socrates. He believed like that if you were that you couldn't really do science, you couldn't really manipulate nature, because if you were to say cut a tree to analyze its rings, it wouldn't be what it was before. It's no longer a tree; it's a cut tree. Same as like a frog. Like if you were to cut open a frog, you wouldn't be studying a frog, you'd be studying a cut open frog. And so there's that line of thinking where, like say because genetically modifying things, also we do that with food all the time. We do that with plants. And so there's one line of thinking that would say, or one line of logic that says, then what makes doing that to humans any different if we are a created being, just like anything else? However, I think where a lot of Christians come in is the scripture that like God knit you in your mother's womb and all that stuff. Exactly. And that it's God's hand in directing people and creating people directly, whereas creation was sort of, I guess, a one-time thing back in the past, even though it gets into a lot of theological and metaphysical questions there. But I don't know if it's, I guess to wrap this up, I don't know if it's possible for us to play God in this respect.
I was going to add that when it comes to difference between, and of course, Christian worldview, when you look at the aspect between humans and nature, if you're looking at it from that worldview, you're going to see God saying, okay, man, I give you dominion over the earth.
Right.
So and if you believe that man has some sort of free will choice in what he does, as you can see, we obviously have some sort of free will choice, even if we don't want to get into determined and predetermined things scientifically, right, thinking how our body acts and the agencies that we act upon, but just in basic free will. Obviously, we've made choices in our free will that has destroyed the earth. And I'm going to go back to the Christian worldview of playing God. Justin, I'm going to agree. If you believe in a God, especially in all-powerful God, there is no way that you could play him as a creation of him. So I would throw that out the window in that of itself. Right. But going to the point of
Tower of Babel, you can totally play God.
No, I think you can try, but you will be smacked down.
That didn't end well for the Babylonians.
Well, and yeah, I guess you could try to play God, and I think that's the thing is like, would this be one of those circumstances if we're looking from a biblical perspective? No matter how you look at Genesis account, I guess you could go to Tower of Babel and say, if God feels that you're trying to be him or trying to reach him or whatever, trying to, I guess, impersonate him, he would take care of that, and therefore that would never happen.
I like how you say he would take care of that.
And if you think about it, the only reason why he would take care of it is if he feels threatened by it.
Yeah, and which, yeah, I'm gonna go in a different way. What do you mean?
Oh, that's the only reason anybody would like deal with something.
It puts you in your place. I mean, we do it.
Yeah, but that's because you feel like you don't put somebody in their place if you're like completely confident in what you're doing. Like then you're just like, oh, they're fine. They're never going to do it. They're just wasting their time. It's like they might actually do it. I need to put them down so they don't try this again.
So when a teacher disciplines a kid, it's because they're not confident enough
I'm not saying all discipline is for that, but I'm saying when in the case of like somebody trying to get power, in that case, yes. I think in that case, yeah. Because when a teacher disciplines a child, it's usually because the child is trying to get power in their classroom and they feel threatened by that. Yeah.
I'm going to go in a different direction.
That's fine. I'm sorry. I like to derail.
Yeah, no, but I was going to say that where it's less to be, I think because since I've been in places where I have to, I don't want to call it discipline, but have to instruct a level of authority. Mm-hmm. In certain instances, it's not because of I feel threatened, because believe me, no youth group ever made me feel threatened that I was going to be overtaken. But it was more to control the chaos and bring order so that there could be a functioning of people in a room that would have an orderly function, so to speak, sure. Instead of having chaos. So instead of having chaos, I'd had to put all those people in their place so that they'd understand
Which you did.
Which I always did.
Yeah, I was there. I know.
But it was
because there's no video. Justin has a very uncomfortable expression on his face.
but I mean, I get your point too, Jack. I think there's times where that happens, but I also think there's other times where to maintain order in certain societies, whether it's small or large, the authority figure has to put his foot down.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah. But anyways, I think that the controversy is I really feel that other people are afraid of what other people can do with certain technology, whether you're Christian or not Christian. I think there's a lot. I think if I was hearing this article or reading this article correct, one of the ones I was looking at was that the people who was raising the biggest uproar about the Chinese and what they were doing were not religious people. They were other scientists who were freaking out at what they were doing. And, and that's what I was like, why is this such a, I mean, let me get this straight. If somebody came to me and said, hey, we've got this method that we can go in and alter the DNA of the embryo that will successfully give you a child that will, come out with no genetic defects, no birth defects, no retardation, no mental handicaps or anything like that, I'm going to look at that dude and go, well, heck yeah. I mean, what person in their right mind wouldn't want their child coming out perfect? I mean, right? I mean, that's what we all hope for when we have children. Right.
So I think the big fear comes from, I don't think anybody's ever against that. Like, I don't think that's the argument against genetic engineering.
Okay.
I think the argument people make, or at least kind of imply, is that we don't really trust everyone to like abide by this rule, that we shouldn't do it to like give people an edge. We should do it to like remove any sort of quality of life issue, any sort of propensity for cancers, any sort of propensity for birth defects or for like PKU or terrible illnesses. Mm-hmm. And and it seems to me that like I think most people are against doing that and would be against doing that for their own child, to try to like alter who they are, who they'll be or something like that beyond preventing illness. But I think it's mostly that people are more afraid of other people not following their same rules or their same moral code. It might be like, no, totally, I want to give my kid an edge in life in that way. And I think that's where a lot of the fear has to come from.
Do you think it has to play on, like we were talking about the racism fact earlier, about this creating this system that gives you a benefit or edge over another group of people, that in this system, because our system is run by money, those who are rich can make their kids better than those who don't
totally
have it.
Make oppression worse.
Yeah.
Like that would absolutely be the case. I mean, you see it all the time in science fiction novels. Yeah. It's like the genetically modified versus the ungenetically modified. It's just something else that's obvious that that leads to oppression. And it'd be absolutely correlated to wealth. And wealth is always correlated to race and sex and many other factors.
Exactly.
And like, if everybody was equal, it wouldn't be as big of a deal, because that's not the case ever. It's really a problematic issue. I mean, it'd be great if everything was equal, but it's not. It's terrible.
No, it's not.
No,
it's a broken world. It's a broken world. No matter where you look at it from a science point of view or a faith point of view, this world is broken.
Mm-hmm. It's getting better.
Okay.
It's not good, but it's getting.
Yeah, it's getting.
I'm sorry. I'm like a positive person.
It's really getting better. Yeah. I mean, I agree. As cultures have progressed with technology, we're far less violent overall. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I don't know if it's getting better.
I mean, it's never going to be the culture you want because culture is decided by the collective, and you probably are not going to want a lot of the decisions they make. But like, it kind of like subjectively, violence has gone down, persecution's gone down, racism has become a lot more subtle as opposed to overt racism.
Yeah, just for the past few months. Just for the past few months, it's been brought back to the mainstream light.
Yeah. Oh,
well, that has to do with media coverage too.
Oh yeah,
because,
absolutely.
I mean, when you think about it, these are probably really heavily isolated events that we're just hearing about because they are isolated events.
So yes and no, because like I think there are, and it's really interesting because there's things like one of my favorite statistics that I've heard was that in Ferguson, over 90% of the arrests made were of black individuals. And there's nothing like atypical about Ferguson. Like it's just a regular town, which makes you think that like, yeah, there's been a lot of focus on the rioting and a lot of focus on the protests. But if you really think about it, there's not that much else that separates Ferguson from other towns besides the fact that people were more fed up with it. So there are probably a lot of other towns that have that high of an arrest rate for black individuals, which is just terrifying to me. Like that's just so awful.
No, you're right. And I was thinking, and I mean, since we're right here for this moment, I was thinking back to the kid who got arrested when he got arrested in Shelby today. How did that arrest go down? And I was thinking, what if it was a black guy who walked into a white church and shot 9 people?
That black guy wasn't going to walk out of that church.
He was not going to walk out of the church, or when they found him, the story may have been a world different. And I'm just saying that because that's what we see. I mean, and it's not something. Here we go. Through science, we can observe this happening. I mean, and I'll say this. I'll go back to when I was in school, high school. I hung out. Like I said, my culture was a little bit different. You know, I hung out. I would hang out with all the brothers down at the strip, and we'd hang out. We'd go cruise, and it would never fail. If a cop came up and started harassing all of us, I was the one who got the least harassed.
Yeah,
because I was the white guy in the bunch. And that's just the honest truth. And you can ask anybody who's hung out with a bunch of different race people. I think Propaganda said it one time. He said, you know, as me, a white guy and a Hispanic guy walking down the street, and the cop come up, and I was the one who got put up against the wall because I had the darkest color skin. And it makes me think. I mean, that's what we see. And you know, you think about that. It's what we see in our culture, but.
Yeah.
And you was going back to saying about the race, the sex, and all those. Could you not see a culture in society if that was available for all the wealthy to have firstborn boys, secondborn girls, you know, and it would be, it's almost like taking natural selection to a higher level.
Yeah.
Well, it would become unnatural at that point.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Absolutely.
And I think everybody's it's tough to see a good argument for doing that. Just because of discrepancies and stuff. But the question becomes, like, do we trust the government or society or the scientists from preventing that sort of engineering from happening in any major way? Because it's not a problem if, like, a few people do it. In the sense of, if there's, like, a mad scientist who just goes around offering back alley genetic modification, that's less of a problem than if, like, there's widespread availability for it. And so kind of the question is, will our society permit there to be widespread availability for genetically modifying humans to be like look better, to be just naturally more athletic, or other benefits? And
well, and my thing is that I know it's getting pushed out there, and we're talking about it in some very hypothetical ways right now. But for me, it comes back to breaking down the level of equality that we see between each other. Because for me, what I hear is there's going to be people out there who think that they're better than everybody else, and they want to maintain that superiority. Mm-hmm. Whereas what we try to do is say, okay, we know everybody's different, but we want to come together on a level playing field so we can love one another the same, treat one another the same, even though we believe differently, even though you're a different color than we are, you from a different economic background than we are. Yeah. We want to come together and love on the same playing field. And not throw these prejudice and things, which, like we said, everybody has this propensity for prejudice, but we can learn to overcome those. I've learned to overcome some. I know Keith has. I know Justin has, and you have, Jack. We've all overcome some certainty of prejudice that we have about us. I mean,
absolutely,
it's there. Mm-hmm. So when you talk about these things, and I know we talked a lot of science stuff so far, and it's been very technical at points. Thank you, Jack.
I have a Nature article pulled up that I'm reading through, so like, if you want to get technical, I'll go to the methods. It'll be great.
But you're probably asking yourself, why are they talking about all this science stuff, this DNA, this CRISPR, and all this stuff? Well, it's to point out that we all have questions, and the funny thing is that what you heard Jack talk about, people in general, not just religious people and Christians and fundamentalists and things of that nature. Everybody has this degree of certainty that they believe what they believe, and there are things that will come against that belief system that they're going to stand against. And you don't always have to be in the same camp of religion to come together on something. And I think this is one of those things where we have to look at and go, this is something that the human race has to deal with, not just a faith-based organization.
Right. Like it or not, it's coming. And
yeah,
just to kind of allay people's worries, maybe, it's not going to be around soon.
No.
Because it's one thing to do things in these bacterial models where genes are much simpler.
But humans are so complicated.
They are. And our regulation mechanisms are more complicated. And most importantly, all what we think of as genes, it's not a one-to-one thing. Like, there's not one gene that corresponds to your eye color. It's always this cascade effect of several interacting genes, many, many interacting genes, that are so difficult to map out. The only reason we even have an idea of what genes regulate, for example, eye color, is because scientists have been studying it for decades. And at a certain point, we're going to get the technology to understand these gene cascades, but right now we're not close.
Right. But just to have that out there, when people think about this, they get all freaked out. Like you was talking about, I don't know what Nature article you got pulled up. But the one where they talk about the Chinese scientists genetically modify human embryos, that when something like that gets published and put out there, especially in the science world, I know this in the science world, a lot of people take hold of it and throw it out there because there's some people who want to bank off of somebody else's findings or what they did. So they'll push it even more, saying, this, that, and the other, and they're trying to sound just as smart as the next person, which that's what media does. They take coverage of something and they publish it from one stream to the next, to the next, to the next. And they're banking off of that media coverage. And, when you release something that's saying Chinese scientists had genetically modified human embryos, the first thing you think of is they're getting ready to produce a race of superhuman communist babies.
Army to attack America.
That's the first thing you think of?
No, that's not the first thing.
Superhuman communist babies?
Well, that's not the first thing I thought of. I just heard it from somebody else, and I'm like...
That's my hipster band name, by the way.
I think mine is going to go back to what you said earlier. It's like a farm hardcore band, Poison Corn.
But, when you start hearing... I don't even know if I can carry on now.
You can't even follow up that. Oh, my God.
I'm definitely going to have to re-edit this somehow. But
I'm not going to look up if superhuman communist babies are. I don't know.
But when you start hearing things that come across, when they started talking about like stem cell research and they talk about cloning and things, everybody starts flipping out. Yeah. And nobody flips out better than the Christian community. I'm just sorry. And I'm telling you, when this concept, if anybody hears about this, and I've posted it a couple places, they start hearing about this, they're going to go, they can't do that. Mm-hmm. They can't play God. They can't create this. They can't change what God's doing. But yet, I know secretly, deep down, that person will be like, but if I can have a child born, and I'm saying this, if I can have a child born without imperfections, I'm doing it. Even though they would, out in the public, voice their disagreement because they're going to come alongside their peer group, deep down, you got to think, like I said, to me, I'm like, if you can do it, do it. I know the repercussions of it. I know what's going to happen. I know people are going to take advantage of it, but
I think
it's a good sell. I mean, if you take a look at it, it's like your child might have a 0.5% chance of having Down syndrome, but like if you could remove that, you'd probably do anything to remove that chance. Like it might be very little, but it's still there.
And I think that's where the tension between a held philosophical or ideological belief comes into conflict with a sort of practical, on the ground level. What do I believe about this? Because it's easy and this is not just applying to genetic modification, but just for things in general. It's easy for us to get on a platform and say this, and this, but when it affects our lives or when it affects us personally, for us to have a completely different response.
Exactly.
So yeah, it definitely you see that a lot where people have this idea or belief, and it comes back when it affects them personally, where it's completely different, where they do something contrary to their ideological beliefs. But yet it's interesting because even sometimes even after that event occurs, they still hold on to that idea. For example, I'll just to throw a controversial one out, abortion. The pro-life versus, pro-choice, which I hate those words. That'll be a whole nother podcast.
Absolutely.
Everybody's pro-life.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, to be like,
it's just like I'm really rooting for that. I mean, there is a group of people who do that. Yeah. They're called the anti-natalists, and they're hilariously great. I love them.
Oh, jeez.
It's a group of people who don't want you to have kids. It's really great.
Yeah, but,
Sorry,
but I mean, no, you're fine. But you have, say you have on the Christian side. Say a girl, she's been taught, abstinence and taught, pro-life all her life, and she has, sex one time and gets pregnant. And when it comes to the rest of her life, especially if she's young, there's that conflict in her mind between her ideological beliefs and what she believes and what she's been taught, and the practical, I don't know if I can raise this child. And there's a lot of considerations to go there. And so I think that's where, with even getting back to the topic, genetic modification, of kids, and of potential, children, it can lead to this place of great tension between the practicality of it and being like, hey, I want my child to be perfect. Who doesn't want like he said, who doesn't want their child to be perfect? And what you say you believe about it, because it can go really bad as well.
Yeah, there's never guarantee. I don't think there's a guarantee to anything in life.
No,
but
death and taxes.
Yeah,
God, you beat me to it. Damn you, Justin.
Yeah, death and taxes.
Jim's making me slow.
But it's. I don't know. It's like you were speaking about the practicality of things, and you was talking about abortion, and you think about all the things that happen. It's like everybody can have a belief system, but their beliefs are always tested when it's put in front of them to deal with personally.
Right, and one of the biggest examples, and just a final little side note, it still relates, but when people are like, yeah, I die for my faith, and I die for what I believe.
Yeah.
If you were in that moment and you had a gun to your head to that, I honestly, and this is it might show, I don't know what it shows about me, but I don't know what I would do then. To save my own life.
I'm a stubborn mule, so I'll tell you what I'll do. I mean, I'm legit. I mean, but then again, I'm older and faced a few more things than you have in your life. So,
you don't know my life, Keith.
I know Justin's. But you're right though. I mean, when we were talking about, but when you look at people and you think about this. The only way that I could fully support this thing and I know it couldn't happen, and Jack's right. There's no way you could regulate something like this and trust people to a level that it would be used properly.
I never said you couldn't. I said that's just the concern.
You can.
Hold on. So the issue isn't whether it happens at all. There's always going to be some sort of black market for this thing. It's always going to happen.
Exactly.
But the issue is whether or not it becomes widespread. If one family does it, it's not a big deal. It's the issue of if all rich people have access to it and just start going gangbusters.
And from history, we know what happens.
Okay, potentially, but
are we playing a little chaos theory here?
Well, the thing is, if it's the rich people we're concerned about, if there's money involved, there's going to be a market. I guarantee you. If there's money involved, there's going to be a market, even if it's illegal.
Yeah.
See, I don't know. Because there's nothing that's been like this. I'm not sure.
Do you think do you think this could be something? And I know this is going way out on a limb, but do you think this, if they could find a way to fine tune it and make it work like we're talking about?
Yeah.
Do you think this could be something that could bring people together in one accord? And I know Justin's looking kind of like he's constipated over there, but do you think? I mean, you think about it. What could take? We're talking about that you could create people in an equal way.
Yeah.
I mean, let's just say to the level that it could attain, that hypothetically, that they can modify these embryos, and then people across the board that are being born from that point on out could be. I mean, I know we're talking like almost like Clone Wars stuff here, but
right.
But if you could find a way to say this is regulated, we're going to offer everybody this. Now I know there's people that's not going to want to do it.
Naturally.
And there's always going to be somebody who wants to manipulate the situation. But majority, over all people in the world.
So if we had like socialized medicine, but just for genetic engineering.
Exactly.
That's a good question.
I don't know. I think that would cause conflict. I think that would just bring more conflict.
So, see, I'm of the opposite opinion. I think if you're going to do it, and if you're going to have the ability to genetically modify children to be like without flaws or perfect or super tall or something like that, I think there's only two ways you can do it. You can either not do it at all. Okay, which I guess it means there's one way you could do it. You can either not do it at all, or language. I don't really know how that works. You can not do it at all, or you have to unilaterally do it. And so if you could unilaterally do it, I don't know how I'd feel. It create an interesting culture, just thinking about it.
So are we saying that each individual group of parents can modify their baby however they want, or we're genetically modifying kids to all have certain
same
traits?
Standard.
Yeah. Same standard.
Yeah.
Okay, so you can choose for your child. See, I think that brings more conflict because then
I just think. Well, go ahead.
I don't know. I think that then who decides? I mean, people always have a different idea of what's beautiful and what's
right. But you would be in control of what you think is beautiful
for your own child.
Exactly.
But then your child doesn't live on an island.
Rights. Yeah, that your child gets no say in it as well. So
yeah. I mean, but so the thing is,
and then all
at the point when you're doing it, it's the abortion argument again, just because which it's really tough to argue against parents' choice in that regard, especially when you define what a human being is or what person do human being gets rights and what those rights are. Mm-hmm. It's really tough to argue that an embryo has equal rights.
Yeah,
Yeah, so I mean, I don't know if that's as big of an issue, just because we've kind of already dealt with it as a society.
Yeah, and I mean that goes to the same fact. If you're against abortion, in that respect, on a hard level of it, you're definitely going to be against this modification of embryos. I mean, but then again, you could now I can make my statement of what I'm against and what I'm not. But it surprisingly enough, if you give me the choice now. I love all my kids the way they are. I love that they're different. For me to have a society of children who are the same would be boring, and I hate boring. So I would definitely be against that. But to be able to choose certain things about your child would create a different culture because everybody sees differently. Of course, each child wouldn't be the same because you wouldn't want all your children to be the same because that's weird. I mean, unless you're twins, but they're still different to a point.
Yeah. There's actually some really fun twin studies that I'll probably tell you guys about later. But yeah,
cool.
Twins are cool.
But so for me, I just think that, and I don't. And let me just go ahead and answer my question. I don't think it's possible for technology to bring any and all people together under one umbrella.
Yeah,
I disagree with that actually, and maybe I'm just being super optimistic.
You are.
Yeah,
you really are.
That's absolutely fair. But I look out in the world and I see one of the strongest forces that affect us as a society and the world as a society is this force of globalization, for better or worse, whatever you feel about it. It is one of the most powerful forces.
Yeah.
And I think that it's going to do something interesting, and I hope that something interesting happens to be unification and bring us closer together. So I think if there's anything that could do it, it's globalization.
And then the rapture.
Man,
that was good.
we were just about to get world peace, and then the rapture happened.
There you go. it was the perfect opportunity. I don't know. I don't have. I guess I'm optimistic to some points, but I'm not optimistic with human beings.
I'm not either, man.
Because I mean,
we're terrible.
Yeah, and it's just been, I see how people treat other people. I mean, Matt, let me say this. I see how I treat other people, and it's not very good most of the time. I mean, I have a real issue with how, I treat people, and I'm thinking about, and this is my thing. The only way that I think we could come together as a group of people under one umbrella is if they genetically modify everybody to love everybody. I mean, I'm serious.
That'll be great.
I mean, say everybody loves everybody, and then we can create that culture. But for me, it's tough because I don't know, man. It's just one of those things when I look out at the world and I see human beings acting the way they do, even when and this is my thing when we got back to the whole Charleston shooting thing, and we talking about how people are using this for their own agenda and try to promote this propaganda or their agendas or whatever is going on. Even people who are sympathetic and trying to be loving in this situation are still using it in a selfish way. Because at the heart, this is my thing. I believe people, Jack, that, and Justin and Keith, that I think at some level in a humanistic way we can be good. Okay?
I could agree with that.
But we're selfish. Right. Human beings are selfish people. We do things that benefit us. So until we start all developing this sense of doing things for others before us, humility, in a sense, it's always going to be the same thing. And we're always going to be out for ourselves. And there's always going to be a population who wants to control the rest of the population. So therefore, we can never absolutely have, I think, this true globalization and world peace. That's just my thought. And even if we could use this technology to do that, there's still going to be somebody who abuses that. That's my thing. It's like, so where do we start? And we used all this science talk to maybe for me to get to this one point, is that we can't rely on some outside technology or source or scientific thing to break down these walls and break these barriers. We obviously are trying to prove that here, is that we have to do it ourselves. We have to make a stand. We have to raise awareness. We have to talk about issues that nobody wants to talk about. Right. I know it was a little silly tonight. Maybe for me it wasn't. I loved hearing Jack talk about things that I really didn't know about and helping me learn about things I didn't. I hope everybody here got some of that. And we talked about racism. I hope I got
it right, because I probably...
It's fine. We started out at the beginning, episode 1, and yeah, Jack, we come into it with a Christian worldview. But we always try to make the point that, for us to love everybody, we've got to look past the differences and understand that the person next to me, the person behind me, the person sitting across from me, I'm not better than them. We're human beings who are traveling this life together, and we're screwing it up sometimes. Most of the time, we're all screwing it up. And we don't get it right because we're learning as we go along. Sure. And if we can raise a little bit of awareness, show people that, hey, things happen. People make very bad decisions. Sometimes people make bad decisions because it's their environment that brought them up, the things that they were taught, or it's a chemical imbalance or something's wrong in their head. Let's just say it like that. I mean, they something's not firing right in their brain, and it causes
a combination thereof.
Yeah, true. Mm-hmm. And so we're going to try to step back and say, okay, let's figure out how to do all this together. And sometimes we just have to look at scientific things that we don't understand and say, this brings questions, and how do we deal with this? And if we can sit down together and talk about these things, that moves us a step in the right direction.
Right.
Sometimes we can talk about things that we have no idea about. And guess what? That's okay.
Yeah.
I'm down with that. I mean, I don't mind talking about things I don't know about.
Yeah.
Keith, do you mind talking about things you don't know about?
I don't know.
You don't know?
If you want, I'll give you a lesson on viral pathogenesis anytime. It'll be really fun. It'll be great.
Sounds great.
Yeah.
No, it's all that and DNA. Anyways, but I think. Oh, Justin's face is hilarious. I think that by this very nature of this podcast and what you're trying to do, I think you're actually proving my philosophy right over yours.
Really?
Because because I've probably talked about it on length here before, but my philosophy revolves around the idea that everybody in some way believes that they're the hero of their own story and tends to project that on other people, which I don't think is necessarily a bad thing. But, like, I think what you're trying to do here is heroic, and I think what you're trying to project, this message of love and unity, and doing so through the internet is a good tool. I think that conforms to my philosophy over yours. So I'm just going to throw that out there. It's tough to believe people are bad when you're trying so hard to spread the message of love.
But you know why I'm only doing it, right?
To make yourself feel better, but that doesn't matter.
No.
It doesn't matter.
It has nothing to do with me.
Well, I know why you're doing it, but I would also rebut in saying that if people were born good or inherently good,
I wouldn't have to do this.
There would be no need for this.
Exactly. No, and I'll say this. The reason I'm doing this, and Jack can disagree with me, that's fine. I know he would. Is that this is what I saw in the commandment from Jesus. That's why I'm doing it. It's because because I love him because he loves me. And this is not Barney. But
really? Because that sounds like never mind. That sounds like the intro to Barney.
It sure does. I love
Barney was a Presbyterian.
To be fair, I have no problems with Barney. Barney is great.
Yeah, it kept my youngest occupied a lot. but because out of the love that he had for me, that I returned, because I didn't, he gave it to me for some unknown reason, because I know who I am and I know the things I've done. I'm like, wow, thanks. I love you. But in doing that, what I'm supposed to learn from him in that teaching is that I need to do the same to others. And in my time in ministry, I didn't see myself accomplishing that at its highest level, at the way I should have been. I still saw this segregation of people and things, and because of what they were doing or what they associated with. And when I removed myself from that, I said, you know what? What I see Jesus really saying is you love everybody, neighbors, brothers, enemies, everybody. However you look at that, however you see that. And I'm the one that's going to change your mind and heart on it, not you. And it's going to happen because you're going to go out and obey that because you love me. And this is what I want you to do. I want you to love. Teach others how to love. It doesn't matter who they are, what they look like, what they believe. You go and do that. So it's not out of a sense of being, I mean, you may see it heroic. I don't, because if it was truly heroic, I would be doing a better job of it. And I'm still screwing it up.
No, but I mean that's part of the story of the hero.
Yeah,
and especially the reluctant hero, which I think is what you because that's part of what makes it great. Because the best part of a reluctant hero is that they don't necessarily succeed at first, or the second time, or the 8th time, or the 19th time. But the fact is that
26th time.
Thank you, Justin. That made me feel so good. Man, how many episodes are we going to have to get?
Oh, man. Whew.
Well, and I just hope everybody who listens, again, we're trying to do a lot of things with the podcast, and we're going to come back in a minute and maybe talk about some of those in the next segment. Because
there's another segment. We've been on for 2 hours.
Not yet. Not yet. We'll talk about hopefully some a little bit lighter stuff, and we'll get on the road with everybody's favorite topic and stuff. I don't know.
Ooh, yeah.
Maybe. We'll see in a minute.
Is it sex? That's my favorite topic.
This love and obsession dedicated to lovers run upon the world. I am a thing. Love is a thing that money can buy. So your lovers out there, go on, dry your weeping eyes. How would you feel if I said that I love you until the end? Would you stand up and walk away, or would you stand by me and stay? Or without your love the world ain't mine, and the sun it just won't shine. Papa, duba duba, yeah. L-O-V-E, love you and I want to K-I-S-S, kiss you, girl. L-O-V-E, love you and I want to K-I-S-S, kiss you, girl, tonight.
Oh, yeah. A little bit of Soul Free with LOVE. That takes me back into the day. Man, it was a long time ago. I met this kid. He's like, man, you got to check out these tracks. And I checked them out, and I was like, dude, there's a couple other bands, kind of like Hawaiian reggae stuff, if I'm not mistaken. But anyways, moving forward.
I just want to point out that Justin and I's generation, most of us don't know why they're called tracks.
Really?
Yeah.
That's crazy. True.
And like in a few years, nobody's going to know why they're called tracks. It's like the same thing about like nobody really knows why it's called hanging up a phone. Yeah, it's just something people say.
You know that you make a very good point. There's a lot of things that people say today. They have no idea why they say it.
Yep.
Yeah, or typing on the keyboard. Anyways.
Very good. You know what? Maybe we'll dedicate a segment in the coming episode on pointless sayings.
Things that don't make sense to Justin and Jack's generation.
Yeah, exactly. But they make all the sense.
Walkmans.
That was great. I had a couple of those.
It's most people just say, yeah, I had a Walkman back in the day. You managed to say, no, I had a lot of Walkmans back in the day.
Yeah, exactly.
The ones where you actually put in like a cassette tape.
Well, I was thinking about when we was playing that song LOVE, just, about loving people. I love Keith. Keith's my little brother. He's got the same name as me. I mean, he's got big shoes to fill.
I had no choice in that matter.
Yeah, he didn't. That was something that was given to him beyond his control. And then he met me that was beyond his control.
It was sovereignty. Let's say that.
Sure, let's go.
Calvinist shout out right there.
So Keith's been around a while, and I love Keith, and I like to do things that make Keith happy. But I know something that doesn't make Keith happy, and it disturbs me that it doesn't make him happy, because we just feel like we bring so much love on this podcast.
It's the wrong kind of love.
But it's not the wrong kind of love. It's the great kind of love.
It's the right kind of love.
It's what we do. Is we want to bring fulfillment and satisfaction to people.
I'll do it. Oh, God.
Oh, yeah. It's time to get juicy with Justin's Juicy Bits.
It's that time again.
Woo! That was almost as good as the Shaft opening. Or the Black Dynamite opening, which is a phenomenal movie that everybody should see.
That's a great movie. Thank you very much.
With Black Dynamite, I sell drugs to the community.
So Jory, so Justin, I just need to know what is.
The story of your life this week. All right. So I have a few articles. One of them...
Just a few.
Yeah, just a few. This one, I think it was about like 2 or 3 weeks ago that we talked about the gin that is made out of ants.
Yes.
And so this I thought was a good follow-up, or a kind of a different one as well. So carrot beer debuts in Australia. Yes, carrot beer. So even in the wildly innovative world of craft beer today, it's still possible to invent something new. Case in point, the new Wabbit Season beer from Four Hearts Brewing Company in Australia. It's made from a wort that is 16% carrot juice.
That is disturbingly gross.
I want to point out that most people probably don't get the name of that beer either in my generation.
Exactly.
I got it, and I did the laugh.
Hunting wabbits.
Did you not?
I love Looney Tunes.
I think the fact that they didn't get the laugh.
Yeah, and so the brew looks almost as orange as a cup of Fanta, and apparently tastes strongly of carrots. Obviously, the brewery has so far released 1,200 liters of the stuff, but to date, it's only available at bars in Northern Australia and at the Four Hearts Brewery.
That's interesting.
And then they have a bunch of pictures of it. Yeah,
I'm surprised this hasn't been done elsewhere. Honestly,
yeah.
Did you research that? Is this definitely the first instance? Or is this just the one that Huffington Post got?
I mean, other ones have done it before, like experimented with like carrot cake flavored beer. But this one is it's among the first to try using fermented carrot juice as a way to make a beer that tastes like carrot.
I want a wine of carrot juice.
Really?
I don't know, man.
Delicious.
Oh.
I would actually love to try it.
I mean, I'll try anything once.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, Keith,
Yes.
I have this great new non-religion for you. I think you should give it a try.
I may have already tried it.
Oh,
Way back in the day. Remember, I haven't always been a Christian.
That's true. So,
That's interesting.
So, and that must be kind of difficult because a carrot is a vegetable, which, I mean, I can see, like, turning fruit into, like, beers and wines and stuff like that. But apparently, like, making beer out of vegetables, because apparently few vegetables contain enough sugar to be valuable of a wort, and few have strong enough flavors to work well, like as infusions and stuff. But yeah, so I think... yet the green, and this is the last paragraph in it, yet the green juice movement has acclimatized many people to the idea of drinking their vegetables, and the craft beer world is always looking for new frontiers. So it feels like it won't be long before some brewery comes out with more vegetable-based beers. Just think, you could call one kale ale.
oh God! How is it not a thing already?
That's pretty bad. They've been
I'm gonna
brewing.
look up if that's a thing already. It has to be.
They've been brewing some vegetable-based beers in America for a long time, though.
Yeah.
I know there's been sweet potato beer out for a long time.
Yeah.
Particularly in North Carolina.
Not that I would drink it.
Kale ale's a thing.
Okay.
I just looked it up. There's an NPR article on it.
Nice.
Oh God!
Yeah,
Kale ale's a thing.
nothing surprises me about beer anymore
No,
because
absolutely not.
I mean, who thought up oyster stouts? But those are getting super popular now.
That just sounds nasty. Well, and to point in fact, tonight the first beer I had was Shiner Prickly Pear, which is a great. If you haven't tried it, it's absolutely great, and it's brewed with the prickly pear cactus. It's really good. So I mean, they'll absolutely do anything.
Yeah, they'll put anything
with
in
beer. And the funny thing is that I listen to a few podcasts, and one in particular loves the macro brews. Like their favorite beer is the Miller High Life, the champagne of beers. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, I remember my dad drinking that stuff when I was a kid. And every once in a while you try to get slick, and he's like, I want to do what Dad's doing. and you taste it, and you're like, how? It's like. It tastes like what my piss smells like. and maybe I'm wrong now, but I mean, my taste has changed.
Everyone has that analogy, though. Yeah. Like when I was growing up, especially, I would hear people talk about how beer tasted like pee all the time.
And I'm like, I don't get it. Maybe it's just because of the color of it that correlates it in mine to be pee, but I don't find that the same anymore. But
I used to be one of those people until my friends introduced me to a stout called Dragon's Milk. Which is a delicious bourbon barreled stout. And after that, I was like, I can't say I dislike beer anymore. This stuff is
I'm not a stout fan. I'm not a big stout.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, I love me some dark beer.
I'm more of man. I like the IPAs. Now, I like certain dark beers, but when it gets like, I did the Duck Rabbit Milk Stout.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, no. Milk stouts are just... Ugh.
That was gross.
Oh, milk stouts are terrible.
It made me
you gotta avoid like the flavored stouts and just go for like the bourbon barreled stouts.
I might have to try that one time. But anyways, carrot ale or carrot beer there, Justin?
Yeah.
For me, it's like a vegan beer.
I mean, I would definitely try it. And I mean, a lot of people
Look at Jack. I'm sorry.
The viewing audience can't look at me. I know I make funny facial expressions. You should like screen capture my facial expressions and put them like at certain time intervals, like at 187, Jack makes this face.
One of these days they're going to get a full record of this, and it'd be great. And I was sitting there, I Facebooked earlier, just to interrupt you, Justin, that we should have done a live stream of this one tonight.
Yeah, you should. You should do a live stream of anyone I'm on. It'd be great.
That would be excellent. Anything else on that one, Justin? Go ahead.
No, I know it's like some people kind of probably give us flack because we're talking about we're drinking, and there's like we're talking about beer and alcohol and stuff like that. I'm writing I finished a blog on that, and it should be up this week, so read that to get at least my view on drinking and where that falls within the Christian worldview.
And if you want my view on it, just text me or Twitter me or Facebook. I don't care. I'll tell you what I think about it.
I just want to point out that on Google, when you Google carrot beer, the top 3 related searches are onion beer, tomato beer, and cucumber beer.
Of course those are
And they all exist.
Nice.
Oh, man.
Now, I would give cucumber beer a try.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, awesome.
All
right. Next story. So, related to drinking, this video that I found is a raccoon who found his way into a beer distributor, apparently had broken in, and he gets absolutely wasted. And the video is hilarious.
We haven't watched this. At least some of us haven't watched this video yet. I know I haven't. So
all right. So our reactions to the raccoon beer
this
video.
is live.
Let me mute this.
It's
Can you put that full screen?
Don't mute it.
Oh, shoot.
And that's the sound of the guy realizing he left the door open all night.
Still drinking. Yo, this sun is lit.
Oh my gosh, that.
You have a problem. This is the intervention.
That's great. So that'll be posted. That'll be posted on the Facebook site. Oh, that's so good.
When he falls down
just to interject, I'm going to try to make sure that I put show notes up this week. We're going to start doing show notes, and I will put all the articles that Justin posts that Justin speaks about.
Oh gosh, that's great.
I just love, and to me, I always because I think it was last week that I talked about the drunk chimps.
Oh yeah, that was great.
But just watching video and to see how animals are affected with alcohol, just like humans are, and the similarities of how it affects the brain, motor movement and all that stuff. It's just hilarious. I hope the raccoon's okay though.
That was hilarious. I just want to make one side note that the greatest thing about this article is when I pulled it up, Bellator has an ad of Kimbo Slice versus Ken Shamrock. So
yep.
I'm super stoked for that tomorrow. Drinking animals, I know people say that, and I think some people take a stance, well, that's animal cruelty, and I'm thinking, but if you're getting drunk, why can't the animals do it too? Anyways.
Actually, there are some animals that naturally get drunk, like giraffes will eat the fermented fruit that they find on the ground and get drunk off of it.
Chimpanzees,
the ones we talked about last week. Yeah. So if you listened to the podcast last week, you know we talked about that.
I did. Well, see, this is why I should probably listen to the podcast. A lot of animals do it though, because it's not a human trait. Animals like to get high.
Yep.
Well, speaking of raccoons, one of the next ones I have is that a Florida man captures a photo of raccoon riding an alligator.
No way.
And it's exactly what you'd imagine in your mind.
My goodness.
So a Florida man says he snapped a picture that's truly, quote, only in Florida. A raccoon riding on top of an alligator. He said he took the photo while his family walked along a river in the Ocala National Forest. He says the raccoon must have been startled by the family and hopped on top of the alligator near the river's bank. Quote, I snapped a lucky picture right when the gator slipped into the water and before the raccoon jumped off and scurried away. Without the context, you'd think the raccoon was hitching a ride across the river. Pretty amazing, Jones said in an email.
Why do you do it in a Cajun accent?
I don't
Florida.
know. Definitely the photo of a lifetime.
Look, down in Florida, they country too, buddy.
Yep.
They country down in Florida for real.
North of Orlando. Yeah, that's the thing about Florida. The farther north you get, the more southern it gets.
Yeah,
sort of. There's some people down in the swamps that.
Well, that's true.
Yeah.
The Everglades. Yeah.
The funny thing about this is that the picture looks so perfect.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's just it couldn't be more perfect.
Yep.
And I'm like, man, it's just the raccoon looks perfect, the gator looks perfect, everything looks perfect in this picture.
Yep.
And this is kind of north. This is up in Ocala, so.
Yep.
Yeah.
But man, I don't have any. I really don't have anything to say about this.
It's just cool.
I have one thing to say, and that's Justin. We need to talk about your transitioning after the show. Speaking of wild boars, we have an article about that. Anyways.
Yeah. If you notice, I've been doing that on purpose, like all.
Yeah.
Because you guys never stay on friggin' topic.
That's
right.
why you're here.
Don't blame me.
That's why I hired you.
Yep.
You'll get a raise next week.
Speaking of a raise,
You're getting a 20% raise.
Could I get paid?
Yeah, you absolutely can. I'll pay you in bottle caps.
nice.
Well, to be fair, with Fallout 4 coming out, that's going to be a reasonable thing.
I knew you were going to say that.
It's because I'm really excited.
I know, me too.
Oh, man.
All right.
I fail all my classes.
So, the last article I have, always have to have a crime article in here. So, couple stabs neighbor with rake after loud sex complaints, police say. So, when Mark Gallen of Rogersville, Tennessee, heard some loud noises coming from the apartment next door on June 9th, he feared domestic abuse and called police. Turns out the couple in question wasn't quarreling. They were having sex. Later that night, 57-year-old Gallen again called police to complain. This time, police determined that Gallen's neighbors, Johnny Richards, 33, and Aaron Lawson, 32, had indeed been fighting, according to the smoking gun. The couple reacted to Gallen's calls with the violence, and police responded to a house a third time to arrest them on assault charges. Lawson is accused of hitting Gallen with a rake hard enough to break the handle and then stabbing him in the arm with the broken rake. They told the review that there was, quote, blood on the end of the rake handle that was recovered at the scene. And it says, Gallen told police that Richards also hit him with the 2x2 stick. They were taken to Hawkins County Jail and each charged with one count of aggravated assault. Lawson also received an additional assault charge relating to hitting Richards with a 2x2 stick. Police said Lawson was drunk at booking and hit her forehead when she fell.
So, I just want to point out that there are laws on the record governing what type of punishment you get when you hit somebody with a different size stick.
Uh-huh.
Like, if it was a 2x3, it might have been like a complete felony or something.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, isn't there a rule of thumb?
Oh, God.
Oh, gosh.
Really? You want to bring up that biblical thing? Really?
Is it biblical?
I think it,
Nope.
It's not biblical?
Nope.
Take that, atheist.
Nope. It was.
I'm sorry, it was just created by a Christian society, but not in the Bible. My bad, guys. My bad. Oh, man.
I'll interject there. But, so, we've got a couple who are having their fun.
Yes.
And a neighbor says that they're fighting.
Yep.
So 3 times the police are called.
Mm-hmm.
And the third time is when they decide to beat the man with a rake.
Yeah, pretty much.
In my imagination, the guy who's complaining keeps like walking into their house and being like, "You guys having sex? Or you guys fighting?"
Yeah. What is the proximity of? And of course, when you're reading, I'm trying to pick out certain things. But what was the proximity to the neighbor?
Right. What do you mean the proximity?
Like where was he while they were having sex?
Like an apartment building where there's like one wall was next to the other.
Yeah.
Like,
oh, okay. So I don't know. The article doesn't say.
Well, that's just crappy reporting.
In my head, I imagine. I mean, it's Huffington Post. What can you expect?
True.
Just kidding. I get most of my stories.
I was going to say, don't dig them. They're going to ban you from the site.
But no, when I imagine, like, I think it was just like a house.
Oh, so they're just, he's like outside the house.
I don't know why they would have a rake if they were living in an apartment.
Yeah, and that's where I was thinking too.
My question is, why do they have a rake near enough to their bed to attack him?
For some reason, I think they came outside to beat him up because he kept reporting them.
Yeah.
Well, they need to start putting their tools away. It's not safe to leave those tools just outside. You got to put them in like a shed or a garage or something.
Unless you need easy access to them to break it and stab a person with it.
Yeah.
Because the last time I checked,
when you'll have to do that.
Last time I checked,
the last time I was in a rake fight,
I usually use the metal end instead of stick end because I
looks
want
like you brought a stick to a rake fight. So.
Is that a 2x2 in your hand? Come on.
I got that.
Or are you just happy to see me?
There it is. I knew it was coming.
Oh, God.
And saying all that, people, we love you.
We
We do not promote violence.
No.
A 2x2 penis?
If you
Oh gosh.
praise God.
And with that,
We've officially reached the bottom.
So people, enjoy yourselves by yourselves.
And if the neighbors complain, that just means you're doing it right, I guess? I don't know.
Maybe, I don't know.
I'm not an expert.
Anyways.
thank you.
In saying all that, Justin, very good stuff. We'll have to talk about, I don't know, stuff later.
I apologize for my comments. It's just past my bedtime.
It's okay. It's all right. So, in saying all that, hey, it's been great, Jack, having you on.
Yeah,
we have to do this. We have to do this more often.
Oh, yeah.
We'll
now
talk
with
about
microphone, which, depending on the quality, we'll see.
it'll work out just fine. In saying all that, I'm Keith.
I'm Justin.
I'm other Keith.
And I'm their token atheist friend. Good night.
Woohoo! And remember, as always, I forgot our tagline.
People are not people, they're projects, Keith.
People are not people.
Even
What
Jack.
the hell are they?
As always, we're
projects,
reminding.
Keith. They're
Yes,
people.
yes. Always reminding you, and they had to remind me tonight that people are not projects. They're people just like you and me. So love them like you love yourself. And we'll see you next week.
Thank you for listening to the Forgetting Walls podcast. If you're subscribing to us on iTunes, leave us a rating to help us spread the word about this podcast. Remember, the only way this works is if you share your story. So be sure to visit the website and leave us a comment at forgettingwalls.com, or find us on Twitter at forgettingwalls and facebook.com/forgettingwalls.
Peace!
I want them alive. No disintegration.
Dude, hold on. I'm going to look that up right now. That has to be a band. Hold on. I will bet you money that is a band.
But
oh, Lord.
But when you start,
yes, it's a band. The band Poison Corn at Reverb Nation.
oh my god!
Oh man! Oh, it's beautiful.
Well, as scientific as this podcast was, it has drastically gone downhill.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Hold on. Could I read the bio? Because it's beautiful. To
Why
Poison
not?
Corn.
Why not? Let's hear the bio.
So,
of
so just to plug the band Poison Corn. 4 dudes straight out of the cornfields of Chilliwack, BC, Canada. Every Friday and Saturday, we practice in the basement of dreams, accompanied by lots of our favorite alcoholic beverages, pizza, good friends, and drunk skateboarding sessions afterwards. We have lots of musical influences, ranging from punk rock to indie rock to ska reggae, and a more progressive rock feel. The band consists of Dion Gallant, Dee Don Easy, Blake Pinder, Bake Block, Zach Davis, spelled with 2 Ks, Zach Jacket, and Anthony Fair, Tony 2 times. So I'm sorry, Justin, no matter what, your band Poison Corn will never be as cool as this.
No!